to Revolution Report, the show that highlights pressing issues, uplifts community voices, and questions the status quo. I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
And I'm Analisa Venolia.
We felt the need to dive deeper into societal problems and explore subjects from diverse perspectives. So join us in the revolution. This week, we'll be talking about fascism and the current American government.
Before we dive into that, however, we wanted to follow up on our previous episode about the fires in LA. Just in case you weren't aware, the fires are out.
Yes, the city is recovering. Even though the flames are gone, it doesn't mean that everything has gone back to normal for everyone. We wanted to still encourage people to donate what they can, because thousands and thousands of people are trying to rebuild their lives.
And we're still happy to plug any links to GoFundMes or Venmos that you guys send us.
Now, let's get into our main topic, fascism.
We're going to be diving into what the hallmarks of fascism are, and how we can see them in our current administration.
Then we'll draw direct comparisons between Nazi Germany and the Trump administration.
It's not all going to be bleak, though. There is hope.
Yes, previous generations have survived authoritarianism, and we will too. Now, let's get started.
For this discussion on the hallmarks of fascism, I'm going to be pulling from Umberto Eco's essay, Ur-Fascism, which we'll link on the website. I read it years ago in a comparative fascisms course I took in undergrad, and I wish it wasn't as relevant as it has been. In the essay, Eco lists 14 markers of fascism, and he makes sure to point out that not all of the markers need to be present for fascism to exist. Even the presence of one is enough. So, I'm going to go through each of those 14 markers and see if they apply to the Trump administration.
Okay,
let's get into it. So, the first feature, according to Eco, is the cult of tradition, which is basically a calling to mystical, fantastical, historical past. Does Make America Great Again ring a bell?
I was about to say.
Exactly, because it's this mythical, fantastical thing that doesn't exist. The America that is referred to in Make America Great Again isn't an actual America that was true for all Americans. It isn't a perfect thing. Going back to the 1950s, that wasn't a perfect time. There was actually a lot of fear, for certain demographics, and it's just not a real thing is the point.
Yeah.
And so that's an obvious comparison in my mind right there.
Absolutely. I was just talking with my husband about this exact same thing because I was bringing up the fact, when has America ever been great?
Exactly.
Great for the white traditional man. That's who it's been great for. But yeah. I don't know any woman, any person of color, any gender minority, like truly honest to God, it has not been great for them.
Yes, exactly. And so the people who buy into that whole myth of, this great American past that Trump is trying to return us to, unless you're wealthy, rich, white, and a man, in a way that Trump and his cronies are, and I'm using that word intentionally, cronies, chances are you're not going to be thrilled with the America that he's creating, and we're already seeing that happen.
We are already seeing that, with the so many federal layoffs, which are illegal, by the way.
And the monetary impact of these tariffs being imposed, prices skyrocketing, the average American's wallet is really being hit in a way that a lot of the people who voted for him probably didn't anticipate.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. The second marker of fascism that Eco identifies is the rejection of modernism. Now, this doesn't mean a rejection of tech. It falls in line with that calling back to a mythical past. It's actually a rejection of scientific thought.
Oh boy, we're gonna be here a while.
Exactly. That is so obviously a rejection of learning, Yep,
girl.
We don't have to dive into it too much because the comparisons are obvious here. Trump and his base love to call out colleges. They love to reject scientific fact. Look at what they did to the CDC, taking down information about vaccines, things like that. Like,
not only that, they took down information of an active pandemic that we are about to be entering again.
Yeah, it's deeply irresponsible and deeply inhumane, but because it's part of their agenda that these sources can't be trusted, that it's misinformation, that, screw the health of the general population, you can do whatever you want, including not believe scientists. It is authoritarianism.
It is, flat out.
Yeah. Marker number 3 is following in a similar tradition, which is action for action's sake, in that thinking is less valued than just acting.
I have a feeling I'm going to be going, to a lot of these points.
It's a lot of attacking modern culture and just a lot of the intelligentsia. That is the action, is attacking those people, instead of actually thinking. And so literally the action for action's sake is, Eco defines it as action being beautiful in itself without any previous reflection. So acting without thinking. Which is also, I feel like that is Trump. He just says things without giving any forethought a lot of the time.
Well, not only Trump, I will say all of his administration.
Absolutely. And then number 4, similarly anti-thinking, it's there is no disagreement. Eco says, for Ur-Fascism, disagreement is treason. Look what happened to AP. Being barred from White House press conferences because they refused to go along with Trump's stupid policy of renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
I was just about to bring that up because not only is it against the First Amendment, it seems like this Trump administration is actively trying to burn the Constitution, burn any sense of civilization that has been cultivated.
Absolutely, because to them, with progress comes diversity and change, and diversity and change are bad and evil. Which actually leads us to the next point number 5, which is a fear of difference.
Girl, I'm... We're laughing because it is so just astonishing.
And it's so in your face. Like, this maps on incredibly well, and it is the way that they're not even trying to hide it.
And I think that's why a lot of people are having this increased anxiety with this administration, because they're so upfront about it.
Yes.
And now what I would like to point out is we have had this throughout other previous administrations.
Of course.
It's just this one is so blatant. It is in your face.
They're not pretending anymore.
No.
Yeah. Eco says, Ur-Fascism is racist by definition, and the Trump administration is openly racist.
Openly.
Look at what they're doing to migrants. They don't care if you are taking asylum in a country, which, first of all, they like to claim that anyone who crosses the border at all, without proper documentation or whatever, is illegally immigrating here. But what a lot of people are trying to do is claim asylum.
Yes.
And that is legal.
That is absolutely legal. And another thing that they are trying to do, they are trying to actively scare and intimidate AOC for giving aid and resources and information about people's rights, whether they are a citizen or not.
Yeah, because how dare she? How dare she, a woman of color, dare to speak out?
So they're actually trying to impose that the DOJ investigate her for doing her civic duty.
The 6th point that Eco lays out is an appeal to a frustrated middle class, which that's Trump's whole platform. Disenfranchised, frustrated white people who feel that their rights are somehow being infringed upon by people of color, by queer people, anyone who's different than them. And let's be clear, the economy hasn't been super stellar for the past few years. But instead of looking at actual logical reasons or explanations for that, or doing anything substantive to try and fix the economy, the Trump administration plays on that anger for their own agenda, that frustration, to gain that power, for them to then go and do their evil things, never mind that they're screwing over the people that are part of their fan base.
No, absolutely, because it's never been about caring about people.
Never.
It has been, and something that I would like to bring up on this episode that I've been meaning to, is anyone that thinks this is a left versus right issue is mistaken.
Correct.
It is blatantly wrong. It has always been up versus down.
Yes, and we need to have a awakening of class consciousness.
Yes, because I promise you, this isn't just the Trump administration. This is about politicians.
And billionaires.
And billionaires. And I'm telling you the cold, hard truth, and it may be hard to hear. They do not care about you.
Not for
We
1
are
second.
already seeing people dying under this administration. Does that tell you that they care about you? And here's the thing. If billionaires came together, they could solve world hunger. They could solve the homelessness crisis. They could solve, you name it, they could solve it.
Yeah.
And they choose not to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the fact that they are making these cuts so egregiously, they are swinging in the dark here about where to cut funding. Do you think that is for the American people? No, it is for tax cuts, for billionaires.
Yeah, it is all about, as you said, it is not left versus right. It is up versus down. And we need to come together to realize that the actual enemy is the people who have no regard for our lives and will do whatever they can to stay wealthy while killing the rest of us.
Yes, and something that I would like to point out before we continue is that we have seen with this administration, once we fight, once we make our voices heard, keep calling, keep doing all of this, keep showing your discontentment, showing up at rallies, they back down.
Oh, yeah, because all Trump cares about is being popular. As soon as he gets a hint that he's unpopular for the people that he cares about being popular with, you know, as soon as they start making it clear to him that they don't approve, he just wants that. He wants to feel cool. He wants to feel important. He wants to feel like people like him. And when he gets a sign that they don't, look at the TikTok ban. You know?
Yeah.
He flip-flopped on that.
Absolutely. So that is something that I want our listeners to keep in mind as we go down this list, is we can fight back.
And people are.
And people are. But unfortunately, we are not seeing enough people in Congress fighting back. There has been a lot of Democrats who have been silent about this active coup.
Yeah, it's not the time to play respectability politics.
No.
This is a direct threat to democracy. Not that we ever had a true democracy here in the first place.
No.
But this is a direct threat to the state of government as we knew it, and people should not be acting like this is normal.
No, and so I'm very thankful that you're going down this list because we are seeing a repeat of history.
110%. And speaking of a repeat of history, the 7th point is an obsession with a plot, a narrative of a common enemy, you know? And so not only do we see that with the current Trump administration, with their narratives about trans people, their narratives about immigrants, you know, people crossing the border, but we also saw it the first time that they were in office with their fears of quote unquote globalism, which is coded language for anti-Semitism.
Yes.
And so speaking of looking at history, which you'll be diving into later.
Yes, I will.
Just a little sneak peek. Oh, what was one of the big fake plots that was a central core of Nazi German thought? Anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not a coincidence, it's not an accident that these are happening.
This is not accidental at all. This is absolutely intentional.
100%. 100%. And that brings us to point 8, which is that the people who are the fan base for this fascist government be made to feel inferior by the quote-unquote enemy, you know? And so we saw that with the Trump administration mocking people who are educated.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's because him and his base feel inferior, things like that. But then it's also linking to globalism, just like feeling inferior. Well, a lot of the Trump base feels inferior because they don't have the wealth that a lot of these tech oligarchs have.
Yes.
But they aspire to it.
Well, it reminds me of people defending billionaires. It reminds me of people defending that because they think they will be that one day.
Yeah.
I want everyone to keep in mind, you are closer to homelessness than you are to being a billionaire. That is statistically proven.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful who you are defending.
Yes. Yes, because they don't care about you.
They do not care about you. I promise you, they do not.
Correct.
There is no ethical way to be a billionaire. I don't care how much they say they donate. I don't care how much. You are actively exploiting people.
Yes, and you're making choices actively to not give back to communities.
Yes, to hoard all of that wealth and not distribute it should be illegal.
I agree. Moving on to point 9 of Ur-Fascism is the ideology that you constantly have to be fighting against something. There cannot be peace. The Trump administration is constantly at war with different groups of people. You know, currently at war with queer people. Again, immigrants. Like, there's always some sort of threat that must be overcome and some sort of battle that must be won, because you can't have the people not angry at something under Ur-Fascism.
Oh, just like what we saw with this recent halftime show. With the blatant dog whistles that are being spewed right now. And what I mean by that is people are saying DEI halftime show. What do you think they're referring to? I'm going to paint you a picture here. It's not nice. It's not friendly.
Yeah.
It is a dog whistle for oppressive terms.
Yeah, it's a way to be racist without openly being racist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a growing hostility from the Trump administration and its base.
Oh, absolutely. They're no longer hiding in the shadows.
No.
Yeah. The 10th marker of Ur-Fascism is a contempt for the quote-unquote weak. So it's basically that all citizens of that country have to be strong. They have to be the best. Basically, it is pro-imperialism, pro-conquering, taking over. If you are weak enough to be conquered in this mindset, you deserve it.
Now, that is so funny you bring that up. Because what did J.D. Vance just do in front of all of Europe? If it only cost us $100,000, and I'm paraphrasing here, if it only cost us $100,000 to totally take over and win the election, your guys' infrastructure was not strong to begin with.
That is, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just be like, if y'all weren't that strong enough in the first place, you deserved it. Which it also seems like is that mindset is being applied to Ukraine. And that, how dare Ukraine ask for aid against Russia? Never mind that Russia is a world superpower, or that has a history of imperialism. And just, remember when we were having a Cold War with Russia? Not anymore, because apparently Trump is buddies with Putin, so.
And I will be diving into more of that when we talk about the history and the comparison.
Now, jumping on to the 11th marker of Ur-Fascism, this is one that I'm not 110% sure does apply to the current administration.
Okay, interesting. We have an anomaly.
We do. But if any of our listeners could make a case for why it does, I'm open to listening. And it is that everybody is educated to become a hero, quote unquote, which is that it creates a cult of heroism linked with a cult of death. You know, it is heroic to die for the cause. Maybe we can see that.
No, actually, I do think there's a case for that. How we do see that in America.
Okay, I'm listening.
Well, that sentiment that you just said applies to the military.
Well, yes. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm not wrong.
No, you're not wrong at all. I was thinking it might actually also apply to those militias that have formed. You know, like the Proud Boys, like the Oath Keepers, things like them, you know, because for them it's not so much an idea of America, but it's this fascist, white supremacist idea of, you know, a white nation that they're trying to preserve.
Oh, absolutely. No, I take it back.
We've come around on it, you know? it does make sense.
No, it does make sense. Unfortunately,
yeah.
The Trump administration won this one.
Yeah, and we hate to see it.
They checked off all the boxes.
And we have 3 more.
Oh boy.
This one, they undeniably check as well. And that it's a tenet of Ur-Fascism is machismo, or like it's uber patriarchal. You know, and it's also in a sexual way. Listeners may recall when Trump said, grab him by the... That is a direct example. Also, how there's a clear disdain for women and disdain for queer people in that, you know? And so it's all about male ego for him and for his followers.
Absolutely. And it's not just him, it's the people he's appointed as well.
100%. Okay, so the 13th one, we're almost done. The 13th one is a selective populism, which is not a democracy, in that individuals don't have rights, but rather it's that the leader is the interpreter of the people, and the leader is the voice of the people. The people are a monolith. There are no individuals, and the leader speaks for them to get rid of rotten governments. Remember Trump's phrasing, to drain the swamp?
Oh my god, I almost forgot about that.
Right? It was only 8 years ago, but it feels like a decade. That's almost a decade. But through that, being the voice of quote-unquote the people, pretending that the people are a monolith and placing them in opposition to quote-unquote corruption, they themselves are actually corrupt.
Yes.
Yeah, and the last one is newspeak, which is taken from Orwell's 1984, which is like Big Brother and how they talk, which is like the language eliminates the ability for complex thought and critical reasoning. It is just a different way, you know, to...
Sorry, I know you guys can't see it at home or wherever you're listening. I'm smiling because this is just ridiculous. We are seeing this, all of this, just play out.
110%. It's, you know, the blatant lying to us that we are expected to take as normal. It is this nationalist Gulf of America. It is calling things that are reporting the truth fake news, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it is everywhere. And so we've gone over all 14 points, and unfortunately, we found a way to explain how all 14 points of Ur-Fascism do apply to the Trump administration.
Yeah, if you want to play a fun drinking game, you can take a drink and you take a sip every time this applies to the Trump administration.
You may get drunk, so have some water with you and drink responsibly.
Yeah, drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive, but get wasted.
I know I will. That's a joke. That's a joke. Okay, well, thank you for going through those with me, Sarah.
Absolutely.
And now, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Let's get into it. So, with this next part of the episode, we wanted to talk about the connections between this administration, the Trump administration, and dictators that we've seen who rose to power in history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Adolf Hitler. And I understand that may be extreme in some people's minds. And I understand that. I hear that. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
as a Jewish person, it wouldn't be right for me to compare this if I didn't feel it were true. And because I am Jewish, I hope that people can see that this is very serious.
Yeah, I'm sure they can.
Yeah. So Adolf Hitler, a convicted felon.
Remind you of anyone who's president?
Remind you of anyone? Rose to power as Chancellor of Germany in 1933. He cleverly positioned himself as the voice of the common man, rallying against the elites and the establishment, which is exactly how Trump started out his campaign.
Drain the swamp, like we mentioned earlier.
Drain the swamp. Exactly. And why he was appealing to a lot of people in the beginning is because he wasn't the typical politician, which is exactly how Hitler rose. Okay. To solidify his base, Hitler masterfully scapegoated minorities for the nation's problems, which we saw early on in the Trump campaign. Who did he go after?
He went after Mexicans in his opening speech for presidency.
Yes.
He did, yeah. Just to name one of many.
Yes, he exploited societal divisions within us versus them.
Yeah.
Which we saw and are still seeing today. He's reiterating what he has done since the beginning. Yeah. Once in power, Adolf Hitler, he wasted no time dismantling democratic institutions. Loyalty wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. Opponents silenced. Media that dared to question him vilified as the enemy. What are we seeing now?
That made me think of all the FBI agents who are being fired for participating in the investigation into him or investigations into January 6th. And like AP, like we talked about earlier as well.
Yes. And so the Nazis restricted voting rights in Germany in several ways, like including banning certain groups of people from voting, lowering voting age, and restricting the number of political parties. Now, in 1936, the Nazis banned Jews and Romani from voting, okay? This was a major factor in the large drop of invalid and negative votes that year. Now tell me, what are we seeing current day that they are trying to push in voter restriction or making it harder to vote? I will tell you if you do not know. The GOP's SAVE Act that Texas Republicans are pushing as we speak would require a birth certificate that matches the person registering to vote. Meaning, they are attacking trans people, and who else do you think that has changed their name when they get married? That's right, women. 69 million married women have changed their legal name in the United States. So, again, because they have changed their name, it will not match their birth certificate.
The surface reason I'm sure that they're saying is, oh, this is to stop trans people, blah, blah, blah. But it's affecting millions of women, and statistically, women have been proven to vote left more than men.
Yes, but also I would like to point out, Trump has gone on the record literally looking at this act and thinking about it. He is considering it.
Yeah. Because it suits him and his base if trans people and if women don't get to vote. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Texas Republicans proposed this, because Texas is starting to become purple.
Absolutely.
And women are a driving force in that. So, disappointed, but not surprised.
No, not surprised. So, with what we just discussed about Nazi Germany, trying to dismantle the democracy of voting. So, food for thought.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that leads us to our next point. The Nazis also persecuted and oppressed opponents, framing them as traitors to the Republic. They removed basic personal freedoms, such as freedoms of speech, the right to own property, and the right to trial before imprisonment. Now tell me, how is this playing out modern day? What have we seen Trump do to Biden due to Harris, due to, you name it, he's done it.
Yeah, and he's currently, as you mentioned earlier in this episode, attacking the First Amendment, which is really funny because I thought the Republican Party was the party of free speech. Apparently not when they don't like what you're saying.
Exactly. And the right to trial before imprisonment, I would like to point out that is not happening with immigrants right now.
Yes.
That is not happening. They are going straight to Guantanamo Bay. They are going straight to Guadalajara. The horrific conditions we are seeing right now. This is cruel.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an abuse to humanity.
So basically, when you get caught by ICE, there's supposed to be a trial.
Yes.
We are not seeing that now.
They're just bypassing that.
They're bypassing that, and they're going straight to solitary confinement.
That's despicable. Despicable and inhumane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and as we know, that is no longer a law, that immigrants get a trial before they're prosecuted. Now, and the reason why I said that is because it is cruel. It is inhumane. That should be in place.
And it was. It just no longer is.
It just no longer is.
Yeah.
So, back to what we were talking about. As I'm bringing this up, are you seeing the parallels?
Undeniably.
Aha. It's almost like he's taking rules out of the playbook.
Of fascism, yeah.
Of fascism. Now, who else do we know in this current world who loves fascism and is a dictator?
Does his name start with P and end with Uten?
Yes, it is Putin.
I'm listening.
Points if you got that. Points if you got that at home. So, I wanted to bring up the Russian style of propaganda.
Tell me about it.
For an age of information abundance.
Intriguing.
Yes. So this is called the fire hose of falsehood. This is a known tactic that a lot of dictators use, especially Vladimir Putin. So it's also known as fire hosing. It's a propaganda technique in which a large number of messages are broadcast rapidly, repetitively, and continuously over multiple channels, like news and social media, without regard for the truth or consistency.
Okay.
So, in this age of fake news, as Donald Trump likes to call it, in this age of just getting out propaganda, getting it out, so the Russian government used this technique during the offensive against Georgia in 2008 and Russia's war with Ukraine that started in 2014.
Okay.
So right now, would you say we are in an age of the fire hose of falsehood?
Well, what comes to mind instantly is it feels like we're in a barrage of one thing happening after another. The Trump administration is constantly putting out these stories, and then a few days later, they'll say, oh, we take that one back. But they are constantly releasing things. So it's hard to stay on top of what the administration is actually doing and what they're just putting out there to cause a media spin or a media frenzy to help cover up the things that are on their actual agenda.
Yes, absolutely. And so I wanted to bring this up because I think that this further proves, in this case, as you will, that Donald Trump is bought by Russia.
Oh, yeah, him and Putin are besties for sure.
They are besties. He is simply going on the record saying that Ukraine should just end the war with Russia. No. That's not what happened, Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
What happened was Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yes.
That was not a war started by Ukraine.
Correct. Yeah.
So he is continuing the fire hose of falsehood with those statements.
Yeah, absolutely. Helping not only him, but his fellow oligarch dictator cronies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love learning new media theories. Thank you, Sarah.
No problem. I want want to circle back after we did discuss that Trump is clearly bought by Putin, literally doing everything that Russia has been doing for decades. I want to also point out, I'm so frustrated. As a Jewish person, I am so frustrated with this. So J.D. Vance went on Twitter, or better known as X, whatever.
It's still Twitter to me.
It's still Twitter, whatever. Okay. Yeah. So this makes me extremely, extremely mad for Jewish people and people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to tweet. Does the media really think the Holocaust was caused by free speech?
Stupid thing to say.
Yes.
Intentionally trying to aggravate people.
Intentionally trying to stoke the flames of Holocaust deniers.
Mm-hmm.
So, guess who chimed into the chat? The Auschwitz Memorial.
I love the Auschwitz Memorial account. It is a mandatory follow in my mind.
Absolutely. It's go follow. It's incredible. So they responded, when we look at Auschwitz, we see the end of the process. It's important to remember that the Holocaust actually did not start from gas chambers. The hatred gradually developed from words, stereotypes, and prejudice through legal exclusion, dehumanization, and escalating violence.
Facts. You tell him, Auschwitz Memorial.
Absolutely. So we are seeing that. They are saying it without saying it. We are seeing this modern day. And if Auschwitz Memorial is pointing it out, everyone has to start waking up.
Yes, their job is literally to preserve the history to make sure it doesn't happen again. They're ringing the bells, the alarm bells, saying, pay attention.
Yes.
So pay attention.
So I wanted to bring up a quote from Elie Wiesel. He is a Romanian-born American Jewish writer, professor, political activist, and Holocaust survivor. He says, always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Now, I think Congress and everyone can learn from that.
Agreed.
But what I'm especially so upset about is that we are seeing people in Congress and in political power positions being silent.
Yeah. Going along with all of this as if it's normal, approving his cabinet picks as if they aren't unhinged, the least qualified ever.
Yes, and just like RFK.
Sorry, listeners, what you didn't see was me rolling my eyes 4 times.
Yes.
That man
is a disgrace.
He had a worm eating his brain.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of who he is as a person. But y'all, that man had a worm in his brain.
Yeah, see, I would like to point out this is not related to what I was talking about, but you know how they're imposing all of these things with like DEI and like we have to get rid of it. What makes them think they're not DEI? We have a senile man running as president. We have someone who has a disability, autism, as the actual shadow president.
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
Mr. Doge himself.
So what makes them think they are not a DEI hire?
Yeah, points were made. Points are 110% made. The hypocrisy is real. They don't care, though, as long as it suits them. That quote from Elie Wiesel that you brought up is so powerful. And it reminds me of the slogan of ACT UP from the 80s. And ACT UP was an organization of queer people that was formed in 1987 across the nation to fight against the inaction of government and institutions during the AIDS epidemic, when like thousands and thousands of people were dying. Their slogan was silence equals death.
Yeah, quite literally.
And it did, and it does now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really poignant, really important quote, and I hope that, well, I have faith that our listeners are engaged politically.
Yeah.
But if you're not, please get engaged, because we're not exaggerating. Lives are on the line.
Lives have been on the line and they will continue to be, unfortunately, throughout this administration. Now, one thing that we do know with this administration that we brought up previous in this episode, fight like hell. Give pushback. Speak up. What we are seeing right now is a lot of people in power not speaking up. Like, what just happened with the universities? The funding was cut. The NIH was cut.
Yeah. Left and right, disasters are happening, and we can't act like this is normal. Because it's not.
No, and look what happened. Because universities were not speaking up, and they were cut.
Put pressure on your local Congress people, put pressure on your senators. Call them.
Call them.
Be a nuisance.
Yes.
Email them. Call them. Calls matter more. If you have phone anxiety, you can find a script online. We'll link some in our episode description.
Yes.
But call your representatives. Leave messages. They legally have to take note of what you say in your messages. Make it clear where you as a constituent stand. Money matters. Think about where you're spending your money. You know, Costco, for example, might be a good place if you can afford a membership because they've refused to comply with Trump's anti-DEI policies.
We love Costco. If anyone wants a bulk of apple juice, just, let us know.
Hit Sarah up. Like, think about where you're spending your dollar. Try not to give the real president, Elon Musk, try not to give him any money, but be very intentional. Speak out if you see injustices being committed, and if, on a practical level, you see, which is a reality, unfortunately, these days, if you see ICE agents trying to arrest or detain people, make sure you have one of those red cards on you so you know your rights, so you can let other people know what their rights are. The red cards have both English and Spanish.
Can we link
on
that
them,
on our website?
And we absolutely will link them on our website. You can print them out for free. There are free, accessible PDFs that we will be sharing. Important resources. Do what you can. It is scary, but we will get through this.
Yes, we will survive this.
That just about wraps up today's discussion of fascism and the Trump administration. It's definitely been a ride, so thanks for listening.
We'll have all the links to the resources we discussed on our website, handballcourtradio.com, if you want to check them out. You can also follow us on Blue Sky at Handball Court Radio. You can also find me there at Sarah Livings-Walsh. And Anna's handle is not like Mona Lisa.
Sure is.
And with that, I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
I'm Analisa Venolia.
And this has been Revolution Report. See you in 2 weeks.